Ever since the big changes Bungie made to health values and body shot damage in the Crucible a few months ago, 140 RPM hand cannons have felt a bit off. But then recently, there was a rebalancing update that seemed small and insignificant on paper, though in practice made a huge difference to the way they performed and has brought them back to their proper place in the meta. The only problem is there's so many to choose from. Which one do you bring into PvP? Which one is worth grinding for a god roll of? To determine this, we'll be looking at 10 of the best 140 RPM hand cannons, playing some Crucible, and while watching the footage back, we will be focusing on 3 major factors. Their overall potential, things like possible perk combinations, stats like range, aim assist, flinch resistance, their ease of use. This will be a combination of some subjective and objective qualities. Does it feel consistent hitting shots? How snappy is it? What's the recoil like? And finally, how hard they are to acquire. What activities do you need to complete for a drop? How watered down is the perk pool? Basically, how much of a grind is it to get a god roll? So let's get into it with the first of our selection, and a true classic at that, Fatebringer. This is the oldest of the hand cannons we will be looking at today, originally appearing in the original release of Destiny back in 2014, but was brought back to Destiny 2 with Vault of Glass in May of 2021 during Season of the Splicer. Notable perks in Column 3 are Killing Wind and Explosive Payload, and in Column 4 you have Opening Shot, Eye of the Storm, and Frenzy. And with an optimal roll, it's capable of about 36 meters of range before the damage starts to fall off, technically 37.5 meters with Opening Shot, and if you take Killing Wind over Explosive Payload, you can get this sucker hitting full damage all the way out to 39.3 meters. And keep in mind, throughout the rest of this video, 35-ish meters seems to be the common range that most 140s are capable of in a neutral state, so we'll be considering that our bar of quality when it comes to range. Now, the roll you're seeing here is an Adept version with Eye of the Storm and Explosive Payload, making this a workhorse of a dueling weapon. And as you can see, I've spent quite a lot of time with this guy, racking up a little over 4,000 kills with it. There's just something about Fatebringer that feels special. Sure, there's a hefty amount of visual kick from the gun, but when you get accustomed to the movement of the sight, you'll start to see that while it sure moves a lot, it doesn't affect the aim of the weapon much at all. And this is probably because of its naturally high aim assist value at 84. This hand cannon just feels sticky and incredibly satisfying to use. And the sound it makes, just listen to it. And with Eye of the Storm, it only gets better the longer you're in the fight. It just feels like the enemy's head becomes a magnet for your shots. On top of all of this, the flinch you're able to deal with Explosive Payload is just insult to injury alongside the massive amount of aim assist you get. I mean, they don't call it Flinchbringer for nothing. And as far as flinch reduction goes, it's pretty average, only giving 8.25% reduction if you rock small bore, bringing the stability to 64. But that's not really a big deal in this situation because Eye of the Storm is what's really going to hold things down as the fight goes on. All this considered, the grind to get a god roll is pretty steep. It drops from the 3rd and 4th encounter of VOG, and it can be acquired from the chest at the end of the raid, but farming up enough spoils to get a good roll is very time consuming, and if you're not a big time raider, good luck. And while the perk pool isn't too big, 6 options in both columns, it's really watered down considering the only rolls worth using are Explosive Payload and Eye of the Storm or Opening Shot. This in mind, it's not easy to recommend chasing down a god roll of this one, although it's a very, very capable hand cannon. So why don't we take a look at another beloved 140 that doesn't take any grinding to get a perfect roll of, because it's craftable. Austringer. Originally dropping from the Menagerie in Season 7, Austringer was brought back as a craftable weapon during Season of the Haunted. Notable perks include Snapshot, Outlaw, and Eye of the Storm in Column 3, and Zen Moment, Opening Shot, and Frenzy in Column 4. And crafted for max range, it's capable of 37.5 meters, again with Opening Shot. However, the way I would craft this to maximize the strengths of the weapon would be Enhanced Eye of the Storm, Enhanced Zen Moment, High Cal, full bore, and a range masterwork, resulting in only 34 meters of range, but what you get in return is a great accuracy and flinch resistance the longer you're in the fight. And I think this is why Austringer has been such a favorite of many controller players. While I wouldn't know personally because I refuse to touch that input device, I can imagine that such a high flinch resistance would help keep you on target with the sticks. But even on mouse and key it felt nice later into those duels, though overall I really just wasn't feeling the weapon. Something about the hand cannon feels inconsistent in the opening moments of a fight. Only when I start taking damage, get into the second, third, or fourth shot, do I really start to feel it come alive. And when I crafted it with opening shot, it still didn't feel as competitive as the other hand cannons we'll be talking about later, which was really frustrating. No matter which way I set up the gun, it just felt like I was compromising performance either early in the fight or late in the fight. And ultimately, I'm not upset about that. Look, it's a craftable gun. If it was a top performer, that would just be a little messed up. I want the best of the best to only be accessible by people who put in the work to get a G-roll. Top tier weapons shouldn't be immediately available through crafting. But what if you want the pinnacle of performance that a 140 has to offer? Well, then I think you need to take a long, hard look at Rose. The first offering of the revamped competitive pinnacle weapons introduced in Season of the Seraph, and it came stacked with notable perks to choose from like Slide Shot, Moving Target, Elemental Capacitor, and Rapid Hit in Column 3, and Eye of the Storm, Snapshot, Opening Shot, and Explosive Payload in Column 4. As well as a fifth column of different grips that affect stability, handling, and recoil. And with a slide shot god roll, it's capable of just beyond 37 meters of range. And that's without opening shot, which is great because we still have huge range and also pick up another perk like Explosive Payload or Eye of the Storm. And what you're seeing me use here is exactly that. Slide shot, explosive payload with as much range as you can get, and to put it as simply as possible, this hand cannon does everything Fatebringer can do, but better and faster, all while getting free range, stability, and partial reloads from slide shot. It's just so much more quick and agile than Fatebringer could ever be, and that's because it's a lightweight frame and its stats are based off of the old 150 RPM version. And being able to hit at such a distance with that much consistency while in a slide animation is borderline busted. Whether you're pushing the enemy and closing the gap, or on the back foot looking to finish a kill while moving the cover, Slide Shot is just the holy grail of hand cannon perks. Considering what there is to gain from using a Slide Shot Rose, I do just about anything short of sticking my hand in a wood chipper for a perfect roll. Thankfully, I just got my 5 out of 5 over the course of making this video, so now I don't have to. And Rose is relatively easy to get a drop of, but hard to farm. All you have to do is complete your first 3 comp matches of the week, and then you can go buy one from Shaxx. But if you're willing and capable of working your way up to Ascendant rank, you can buy 7 a week. So really only accessible to the competent PvP players, and while this creates a scenario where the rich get richer, I don't feel like a gun of this potency should be accessible without putting in hard work for it. And even if you can pull 7 a week, it's going to take a lot of luck from RNGesus to get a 5 out of 5 roll. All that said, while there still is a hefty grind to get a competitive roll, it's well worth it. But maybe you don't have that time. You're coming back to the game after a decent break and want to know if your old 140s are still any good. Then I think we should talk next about a hand cannon that is likely in most longtime players' vaults. Palindrome. Originally a D1 favorite, Palindrome came to Destiny 2 during Season of the Chosen as a Nightfall weapon, and at that time Rangefinder and Killing Wind was the role to get, and a very performant one at that. But today, a bit of a wet fart of a hand cannon. Don't get me wrong, the gun is sharp, crispy, consistent, really everything you want a 140 to feel like, but since the rangefinder nerf almost a year ago, it just doesn't have anything special to offer, and it's been outclassed by almost every 140 release since. I mean, just look at the perk pool. The only thing worth using here is Killing Wind. That's it. There's just so many other options that are worth your time, so consider this a PSA to delete Palindrome. Chances are this gun will be refreshed soon with actually competitive perks anyway. And speaking of newly refreshed hand cannons, let's take a look at the 2 newest 140s brought into Destiny with the Into the Light update last month, Midnight Coup and Luna's Howl. Midnight Coup, originally dropping from the Leviathan raid at the start of Destiny 2, was an instant classic, loved by many with again a truly iconic weapon sound and feel. And today, a very good hand cannon capable of 37.5 meters, again with opening shot. However, the optimal setup I feel is explosive payload and Zen moment, compromising the range to only 34 meters, but in return giving you a very competitive counter offer of dealing massive flinch to your opponent while massively reducing the flinch you receive. And this is because of the interaction between payload and Zen moment. Because the damage numbers get split from payload, it actually counts as 2 hits, making Zen moment stack twice as fast. And that turns this hand cannon into a dueling machine. The level of confidence I feel challenging while using this 140 is unmatched. It just connects and it only feels better as the fight goes on. Really though, this gun is like the perfect love child of Fatebringer and Austringer, albeit with a bit of a weird recoil pattern, though with a little bit of time using it this month, I've quickly acclimated to it and absolutely love using it. While I feel the explosive payload Zen moment combo is the strongest, you also have other good options like moving target and enlightened action in column 3, with Rampage, Frenzy, and Desperate Measures in column 4. Lots of good options to work with, and the best part about it is Bungie is handing them out left and right for free through Onslaught. Definitely a gun worth a tuning, so go farm your heart out. Now guys, I think it's time to talk about the elephant in the room. The newest 140 to release that is absolutely packing. Luna's Howl. A former menace of the Crucible, this gun needs no introduction. What it's able to pull off with the damage buff from Magnificent Howl should be illegal. It's capable of 37.5 meters of range with slide shot and opening shot, but you and I both know we don't care at all about opening shot on this gun. What this 140 is all about is slide shot with either Mag Howl or Precision Instrument, and I'll take a moment to speak on each separately. Mag Howl is an absolutely busted perk. Being able to deal 122 damage a shot and 2-tap Guardians at full resilience should be considered exotic in my opinion. And bringing it back, although reworked from its original state, on a free weapon that's so easy to farm for is the most controversial thing Bungie has done with this Into the Light update. But hey, you know, I get it. You've got to sweeten the pot to get people to come back to the game somehow, right? Still, I don't think this perk should be as accessible as it is. And sure, the perk isn't doing anything for you from a neutral state. It takes some work to get it activated, but once you stow away 2 or 3 Mag Howl rounds, this thing absolutely cooks. And the pure joy you experience from chaining those stacks of Mag Howl across 2 or 3 kills is just unmatched. Playing with this gun has been the highlight of my week. Now, the important thing to note is that running Mag Howl with slide shot or transversive steps is an absolute necessity. In order to stack up multiple Mag Howl rounds, you need a way to reload the gun without using the standard reload. So, while it's capable of great things, its ability is checked by having to jump through those hoops, which is a fair trade. Now, the other menacing perk choice is Precision Instrument. While not capable of the same levels of damage output as Mag Howl, it's just as worth using and doesn't require you to jump through any of those hoops. The extra damage is great for dealing with enemies that run around in a pack all game, you know, hand-holding, team-shotting, overshields, healing grenades, and it also combats the damage fall off too, pretty sick. And Luna's is the only 140 that you can get Precision Instrument on. Again, Bungie, a bit controversial to offer this loot to everyone with no barrier. While Luna's peak potential is insane, and the weapon is absolutely top tier meta for 140s, the great equalizer with using it is its goofy ass recoil pattern. It's a precision frame, which means when you shoot the gun, it does this weird animation where it feels like the gun kicks directly backward into your face. It just doesn't feel right, it's confusing, the barrel doesn't swing up like how you would expect with a hand cannon, it's just odd. And definitely something you have to learn how to work with. The skill required to operate at peak performance with this gun is one of the highest in the game, and that is the only thing keeping me from tilting over the fact that it's basically being handed out for free. But past that goofy recoil, the gun just rips. It's so consistent. I mean, once I hit that first shot, it just feels right. It sinks in. I can't do anything wrong with it. Honestly, I didn't want to take Luna's off, but I had to in order to finish the video. Now, while Lunas may as well be an exotic hiding in purple clothes, let's talk about the real deal. Ace of Spades, Thorn, Hawkmoon, and our little bonus hand cannon that doesn't have a home, Sunshot. All four are very strong options in their own right, and they're exotics that by now everyone has, but which one to use depends on the situation. First, Hawkmoon. It's the cleanest, snappiest, the crispiest of the four in terms of gun feel. It's great in just a plain old neutral state, and it can get up to 37.5 meters of range as you start to stack headshots. And obviously, it does its funny shot at the end of the mag if you hit all of your crits, but to me, the perk is really just a gimmick. It takes so much time and effort to get right, and leaves you with your pants down once you fire off that last round. High risk, high reward, sometimes, but to me, it's just not worth it. And I'll admit, part of that has to do with the fact that I'm a Warlock main. I run transversives all the time, and it just messes up the whole gun with the auto reload. I know there's going to be a lot of you Hawkmoon lovers in the comments just punching the air right now, but really, it's a pass for me. I'm sorry. Next up, Ace of Spades. I really don't know a single person who doesn't love this weapon. Everything about it is just perfect. The sights, the feel, the sound, the sheer dominance you have when you get Mori rolling, it's a beautiful thing. And Transversive Steps doesn't mess up the exotic perk. Wonderful. Now, it's capable of 35 meters of range, no issue there, but the downside is that it's not doing anything special in a neutral state. It's good, just plain, no Mori, don't get me wrong. But if you're playing a sweaty team and you're not able to get that first kill with enough time to reload, you're kind of throwing. So you have to keep that risk-reward trade-off in mind. If you're good with a gun and a good player, this hand cannon is S tier. Now Thorn, for a while, not even worth mentioning until recently when it got an exotic catalyst, giving it a well-deserved buff to range, bringing it up to 32 meters before damage fall off. I know that's not the 35 meters we talked about earlier, but you and I both know what that damage tick from Thorn can do. You also get an increase to its burn damage and overflow the mag when you pick up that weird green gooey thing that drops from a kill, making this exotic ultra competitive. It's very strong from a neutral state, preventing healing with its burn, and it only gets stronger when you pick up that refined soul. Definitely meta, definitely S tier, and better than Ace in my opinion, given what it can do from that neutral state. Definitely one of my favorite exotics. If you haven't tried it out yet since the catalyst, give it a whack. It won't disappoint. And the gun that doesn't have a home, but I feel shouldn't be forgotten about, Sunshot. Now I know, it's a 150, not a 140, forgive me, but the pace you're able to play at with this weapon is phenomenal. It just feels like people can't shoot back at you when you're using it. But the downside is it's hard to control. It shoots consistent, but the visual recoil is wild. Its range at 33 meters, that's a downside too. But in sixes, exploding an enemy and scorching those around is awesome. It definitely takes a level of mastery to be able to perform with this weapon, so it isn't the top recommendation, but if you're willing to spend some time getting used to it, it's very effective. So, what does this all mean? I know we've talked a lot, so let me boil it down for you. My top pick is Luna's Howl. It's what you should be using. Mag Howl for 6s, Precision Instrument for 3s, Slide Shot on both. And it's a legendary in the energy slot, so you can run it with the special weapon meta, everyone's favorite for PvP, Conditional Finality. I know everyone's tired of that thing at this point, but it's an important factor to consider when we're looking at the best of the best, what I think you should be using. And Luna's has that funky recoil pattern, I know, but just trust me on this one, push through it, commit to using the gun, you'll get used to it, you'll adapt, things will start to line up for you, and it will be well worth it. Now, second to that, Thorn. Its strength from a neutral game edges out Ace for me just by a hair. You're just unable to use conditional with it, so that's why it's my second pick. But if you dislike the gun and it doesn't feel right to you, replace it with Ace. Truly, they're both my second pick, really, when it comes to 140s. They're both very, very good. And number 3, Rose. The range is unmatched. You can flinch people with explosive payload, you get that lightweight movement speed buff, Slide Shot is just the GOAT. I don't think I need to say any more, I'm sure you get it. And I will say, an honorable mention to Midnight Coup. There is something special happening there with that explosive payload and Zen Moment combo. The recoil pattern, while a little weird, I find to be really nice the more I play with it, and I always get high kill games when I use it. It's still really good. So there you have it. I hope you learned something from watching. I know it was a long video, so if you've made it this far, thank you. I can't put it into words how much it means to me that you watched. Seriously. Please let me know in the comments below how you've been feeling about 140 since the buff, which one's your favorite in PvP. Truly, I hope to see more hand cannons out there and less scrubs with autos. Until next time.